This is Ed. I'm in Palm Desert, California today. Of course, you can't tell from this picture, but sun is shining. The sun came up around 6 a.m. local time here. It was a really chilly night last night, but today it's supposed to hit 84. So get ready. Summertime. It's December. Go figure. So Rigoberto Vasquez Pina, welcome from Mexico City. Stephen Howard in Phoenix, Ken Lloyd in LA, Christian Trinedin in North Orange County. Welcome, guys. The theme is about recognition. So everybody wants to be recognized, but if they're being appointed by President Trump, maybe not. But it seems to be quicksand for some of his appointees from the recognition from things. This is not political, not a political show, but it's just, what does recognition mean, Stephen?
I think recognition is, wow, what does it mean? In the business world, it means being recognized for your efforts, not just your output. And I think that's where so many people go wrong. They wait until the end of a project to recognize whatever results were achieved. But as I coach people, if somebody's working on a project for 6 weeks or longer, it's hard to stay motivated. And so recognizing the effort that they're putting into that. And so the phrase I teach people is recognize effort, reward results. And that keeps them thinking of recognizing people. But I got a friend of mine who, based on the latest book, Human Mindset, when she read it, she said, I'm so glad you wrote this because everyone wants to be seen. And whether they're a poor person, whether the checkout person at a supermarket or a Target, or the person at the reservation counter at an airport checking in your bags or whatever, people just want to be seen and then appreciated. And I think being seen and appreciated equals recognition.
Ken?
Oh, I absolutely agree with Stephen. And there should be recognition or attention points along the way as people are working on their projects, certainly as the time goes on. You don't want to wait forever and ever, but recognition, in other words, the kind of feedback that you get that's encouraging and supportive and can have an educational aspect to it as well. It can be formal in terms of real documentation, or it can just be great job, keep it up. Any questions, just so that the individuals know that you appreciate what they're doing and you see what's going on and your interest is aligned with theirs in helping them get to whatever the goal, the objective, whatever standard has been established out there. But it's one of the key motivators at work. Achievement, recognition, responsibility, advancement, and the work itself, all key factors that motivate people. And importantly, recognition does have that learning aspect associated with it. So people enjoy receiving it. At the same time, they'll engage in behaviors in the future that help generate that type of feedback. It's rewarding to them, and people repeat behaviors that are rewarded. So there's that whole positive aspect to it as well. Provided, final caveat here, is that it's not perfunctory. If you just, hey, great job, good job, you did well, thank you, it becomes hollow. So it has to be genuine. It has to really be focused on how the individual is performing, or won't have any real merit or won't have any real meaning for the individual who receives it. So bona fide feedback as due along the way in projects, and certainly, as Stephen said, when the project is completed, move it to the reward side. All are very motivational and certainly make people feel good about what they're doing and about themselves.
Rigo, would you like to give me your opinion?
Yeah, I like Ken's approach. He was studying a lot of things in a very holistic way, and I think trying to be simple, maybe it's just about just acknowledge someone else's skills by letting them know that someone is good, without being too repetitive, as Ken's was saying, not like or not being too like always every day saying like you are the best of the best, because then it turns like this is at least what I was expecting, because I already know that I am the best. So it needs to be like something like in the right moment, I would say. And then everybody likes to be recognized, even if it's just for your self in a selfish way. But at the end, it brings like a motivational thing to move forward. But yeah, I think it depends. If you ask me, do you like to be motivated, or do you like to motivate someone else? Perhaps it will change my perspective. At the end of the day, it certainly helps to move forward.
So, Christian, do you think it's more powerful from a direct line relationship, getting that feedback, recognition, or from somebody else higher up, CEO even? What
So,
means more?
right, you combine the two. So that was something that I learned from one of my managers a long time ago. What you do is when somebody has done something extraordinary, which I mean literally out of the ordinary, so that it doesn't become, like Ken said, just perfunctory. What you do is you recognize them in an email. It may also be talking to them, but you definitely recognize them in an email. And you copy whoever you want to copy that's higher up, and make it known to everyone that you've shared the recognition with the people higher up. In my last job, what would happen typically is that the higher up person would then write back and also acknowledge the person that was being recognized, which kind of created a double motivation. So I would do both, but I had two other thoughts. So the first one is going back to the origin of the word. And if I remember my high school Latin correctly, it's cognoscere, means to know, in the sense of to acknowledge. I know you because I see you, like we said earlier. Without being seen, without being known in that sense for what you've done, there's no recognition. And then a negative example would be one of my first bosses, that was still back in Switzerland. He was a small business owner. And right before Christmas, he sat us all down and he said, I'm going to give you your bonus. And so we were all, very excited. We expected recognition, right? We expected a reason for why he was giving us this bonus. And he said, I don't really want to do it. You guys can be glad that you get a paycheck, but I'm going to do it anyway. And the motivation, the spirit in the room just popped like a balloon. It was one of the worst management actions that I've ever seen in my life. Not in terms of impact on, financially, in terms of mood. A mood killer if you've ever seen one. So people watching, don't do that. Don't give people bonus and say, you can be glad that you get a paycheck.
Stephen, new thinking is required, right?
New thinking needs to be implemented. I'm not even sure it's new thinking. I mean, Ken has been talking about this for years. I've been talking about this for years, and both of us have been writing about it for years. But it needs to be implemented. I want to share with you, because I do talk about this in some of my presentations. I pulled up one of my presentations this morning. This is a 10-year study that I cite, is 200,000 managers and employees. 79% of the employees who quit their jobs cited a lack of appreciation as a key reason, and 65% reported that they were not recognized even once by their leader or supervisor over the past year. 65%. Now I can bring this to life. I know if I have a friend, somebody I know, who been working at Target. And he's got he's retired, but he wanted to to do something, and so he works 4 days a week stocking the shelves. He literally just goes to the back room, takes product out, puts it on the shelves, goes back room, puts it on the shelf. I mean, it's a very rote job. And he's going to quit after this holiday season, he said. And I asked him why. I thought you were enjoying it. He said, I did enjoy it the first few months because I was learning something. But I've been there now 13 months and no one has ever said anything to me about the job I'm doing. No one's said thank you. No one's told him if he's doing it right, if he's doing it wrong, if they appreciate what he's doing. He just comes in, the night manager, he works night shifts, the night manager hardly talks to him apparently, and barely nods the head of recognition like, okay, you're on the job today. He goes in, he goes to the back room, he has his little device, he says, that tells him what to take from the back room and what shelf to put it on. And he spends 7.5 hours going back and forth, putting stuff, and not a single manager, supervisor, leader, or the store person has ever given him any recognition at all. 13 months. It's tragic.
Yeah.
Now, why wouldn't somebody above the manager, or why wouldn't the manager just do this? What's the thinking?
Because it's the thinking that Christian said. You know, it says that we pay you money. We pay you, we pay you X dollars per hour to come in and do a job. And as long as you do that, you know, as long as you're not, I guess, as long as you're not stealing from the company, as long as you're not, you know, pricing it for a friend, you know, giving a friend a 20% discount with your little scanning machine so they can leave cheaper. You know, as long as you're not cheating, they don't say anything. And it's just that mentality that we pay you X dollars per hour to work. We expect you to be on time. We expect you to be clean, you know, and we expect you to do your job. And that's it.
We don't expect to know you in what I just outlined, to recognize you because we know you. We know what you're doing. We don't really care what you're
But it's
doing.
motivating, Christian, as you mentioned.
Horrible.
I mean, that's and he's going to quit. And so,
Of course.
I guess he started a year ago during the previous holiday season as a, you know, one of these seasonal workers. And then they asked him to stay on. I guess he was doing a good enough job that they, well, listen, can you, you know, work part-time for us? And he said, yeah. And he doesn't really need the money. He wanted to, you know, get out of the house, I guess. But, you know, I'm sure everyone needs a little money and he was doing it, but he's gonna leave after this holiday season and he'll probably go somewhere else. He'll probably go to a supermarket or do the same thing. But, you know, 13 months and not recognized once, which validates the research study I just cited. This happens. 65% of the people said this happens. It's ridiculous. So what I'm saying is not, you know, I think so many of us, because I think everyone in this audience or this panel has worked in offices. This is the person who works on the floor of a retail store. And so this is where it happens. I don't think it's as prevalent in, you know, the office environment. I think those managers have had some leadership training, but the managers in a retail outlet, this is a major retailer that he's working for. And they have not, their supervisors have not been trained to give recognition. So, or feedback. I mean, Ken, you need to sell 100,000 copies of your new book to this major retailer and have them distributed around the country.
The crazy
So
thing is that,
Go ahead, please,
Sorry,
Christian.
the crazy thing is that I'm sure, without looking it up, but I'm sure that the Target Corporation has recognition programs in place. You know, I know that Walmart does, and they're very adamant about them, and they post it in the store, and they have employees of the month. And, you know, there's quite a, you go into a Walmart, you see, even without paying attention, how much they put on the walls to recognize their employees.
Yeah,
So I'm sure Target, you know, is at least aware of that.
I'm sure they are, but they've got, you know, the average store at Target has 350 employees. So, you know, you're recognizing 12 per year. So that leaves you with 330-ish employees who may not be getting recognized. You're absolutely right, but it doesn't cascade down to that level. You know, you're absolutely right, Christian. This is the problem with corporate culture. I mean, you know, Gary brings this up so often in our discussion, but corporate culture up here says, yeah, we're going to recognize employees. Employees are the, you know, the most important thing, blah, 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 but it doesn't cascade down all the way to the coalface, to the front line, and to, in this case, the shop floor. And that's reality. And this is why I cite this research study all the time. And this is where you can fix it if you're a smaller organization, but how do you fix it when you've got 200,000 employees around the country and it's only being applied to 2,000 of them in the upper ranks or the store manager ranks? So
So Rigo, same thing in Mexico City?
Yeah, I guess it happens very similar as we have also multinational companies here like Walmart, Amazon, with thousands of employees. And yeah, I think technology is helping now, yeah, at some point to monitor and track all of those, let's say, feelings and feedbacks from the employees. But at some point, something is lost, and yeah, perhaps it's kind of impossible to keep everybody's happy. But then at the end of the day, it needs to be like a balance between, your results versus your, I don't know, your feedback and how you are recognized, or perhaps even a balance between your life and your work. All of that, it also means recognition at some point. As Christian was saying, it was one of the worst things to tell him, here's your bonus, but I don't care what you feel. Perhaps for someone else, I mean, in Mexico, someone else will say, I care about the bonus, I don't care about the congratulations, or it could be the other way around. I don't give you the bonus, but I recognize you. I know it's kind of extreme, but it happens. I tell you, it happens. In Mexico, it happens. And I have been in Christian shoes when it's like, here is your payroll increase you asked for, but you don't deserve it. And it was like, oh, I mean, it's like, it was just like, give me the money. And I was like, okay, thank you. But
Yeah.
it is like it is. Yeah.
Oh,
I cut Ken off.
No, just to no, you didn't. I was just to say you can learn so much about a company by the way in which recognition is implemented and what is recognized. When a person engages in independent and creative thinking, comes up with new ideas, and maybe marches to a slightly different drummer, is that recognized? Look, here's a person who's an innovative thinker, or is that ignored, which is really a way of providing absolutely negative feedback for the behavior? Whereas the person who marches in a straight line, does the same thing over and over, that gets recognized. In other words, you can learn a lot about the values of the company if they're even recognizing people at all. And then secondly, what they are actually recognizing tells you a lot of what they value in the company. And if your needs are to be, independent and grow and learn, and you're not getting any recognition for that, but the person who plods away doing the same thing with no creativity, no innovation, no enthusiasm, is rewarded, that's all right, well, my value is a little different from this company. So it's interesting to look at what actually is rewarded. To Rigo's point, I remember I was sitting in a meeting where the company president was giving out bonuses. It was year end, and he's giving a very nice talk. All of you have worked so hard, you've done so well, and you've performed at such high levels. And the person sitting somewhere across the room in a stage whisper goes, pardon my French, but he didn't say, pardon my French, I'm saying that. He said, cut the crap and give out the bonuses. And that's that thinking out there. And that's a very sad commentary on what can go on in the organization. Here was these overall blanket comments that just were not resonating. And it's just, there are different things that are going on that managers have to be aware of in the entire process. And here, instead of the president of this company deflating the process, as Christian described, as Rigoberto alerted to, this was just simply an employee going, come on, let's give us the money. That's what we're waiting for. So all those factors come in. I go back to my original point to understand what is being recognized, what's really valued as important, what behaviors are really important in the company and are being recognized. And those are the ones we want the employees to repeat.
so in a case like that, is it a secret how much the bonus would be? Or is that what's driving the anxiety from that person that says, cut the crap, just give me the money? Because they don't know what they're getting and they wonder about that. They're going to get something, but they're nervous, they're uptight. They got
Well,
bills to pay.
everyone's different,
Yeah.
Ed, and that's the key. I
Yeah.
mean, this is
Yeah.
where we always go back to. You have to lead people individually and having a carte blanche approach to it. You know, as Rigoberto said, some people would be happy with the bonus and no recognition. Other people were happy with recognition and a lower bonus. So it's understanding the people who are working with you instead of for you. And it's that working for me approach. It says, well, I'm paying you to do a good job. Why do I need to recognize you? But if I'm working with you, then you start to understand what motivates the person. And you know, we're talking about really recognition as a motive, as Ken said, it's, or Christian said, I can't remember now. It's such a motivating factor. In fact, it's one of the most the key factors, key motivating factors for most of it, even in our personal lives. I mean, how many times have I talked to people over the years and said, how do you apply this in your personal life? And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, if your spouse is cooking the dinner 6 nights a week, how often do you say more than just thanks for dinner? You know, so recognize the effort. Hey, that was a lovely meal. I really appreciate the effort you put into that. Or I see you've tried a new sauce today. How'd you come up with that? And just having a conversation that shows appreciation, and instead of just taking it as a given that she or he, whoever does the cooking in that family, is just going to cook the meal every day, and the other one's going to show up to share the meal. So appreciation goes a long way in life.
Yes, Christian.
So it's very timely that we're talking about this, because we're having discussions in the family right now about this in connection with high school. The issue with high school is that a lot of the same people are being recognized, and to some extent, to a very large extent, they're related to the people that are recognizing them. Sometimes they're their kids. That creates a lot of frustration with my daughters, who both, are very driven people, and therefore also expect that if they've done something extraordinary, that they're recognized for it, which makes sense. And the question now is, are these people that are being recognized because they are family members, or have they really done something extraordinary? Or is it a mix of the two? And when you have this discussion, you don't want to just be cynical and say, of course they're being recognized because they're members of the family. They're Nepo babies, right? That's a term that my kids would use for that. You can't be that cynical, because it's also unfair. You want to look at really what they've done to earn that recognition, and then you want to make a decision how you feel about it. So it's really interesting to see how in high school these first experiences of being recognized or not being recognized impact a young person. I mean, Natalie's still smarting from not being recognized in middle school, and she's a sophomore now. So and I'm sure she will think about this until, old age.
You really get to the point of recognition that's perceived as being fair and merited and deserved. And when it's not, those who are not receiving the recognition end up being more dissatisfied. And frankly, those who get undeserved recognition are not always thinking, wow, isn't this great? They're not feeling a whole lot better.
Mm-hmm.
They know for the most part that, this other person was more deserving. It's a terrible way to go, whether in a school or in a workplace, to have any of that, whether it's nepotism or any other factors that have bound people together, personal friendships, and having that impact the kind of recognition and the amount of recognition that's given out is a real source of dissatisfaction. Just as has been mentioned, recognition can be a source of satisfaction. The lack of it or applying it unfairly can certainly be a source of dissatisfaction and demotivation. Why should I work so hard when it's just handed to this other person who's friends with the boss? What's the point?
Exactly. It's also interesting
I'm getting messages. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
That's fine. We just go ahead. Just do your thing, Ed. It's also interesting when people change organizations, and if you're, keeping with that topic of relationships triggering the recognition. So when these people leave high school, so yes, they could either be demotivated And that's a great point, and I make sure to share that with my kids. I never thought of it that way. Or they could, on the other hand, they could be very conceited. They could be expecting this, for the next stage of their life. And the problem is that they may go to college and not get it because there's no friend, there's no parent, those relationships don't exist anymore. And I'm sure that can lead to at least terrible confusion. What am I worth here? What's going on? Why was I being recognized before and now I'm not? So that's the other thing that we tell the kids. You're going to be moving on to an organization where these relationships don't exist anymore. You're going to leave high school. And yes, bad memories, but you're moving forward.
Lessons learned.
Right.
So, Christian, let me ask you about relocation industry, mobility industry right now. What's going on this, and talk about recognition in those terms as well. So, looking back when you were managing a remote team, in order to earn recognition, what was your criteria? Did they not get criticism themselves? Your team members did their job, and how close did you helicopter that?
So, okay, so one official way to measure performance was customer surveys, and that's common in the relocation industry, just like with other industries. You would want to, as a manager, you would definitely want to look at those results. And if the results were extraordinary, you would publicly want to mention that and recognize people for it. And more importantly, if there were any comments, you would want to make sure that they were shared. So one thing I did, and funnily enough, that's a little bit to Stephen's point, I seem to have been one of the few managers in the company that did that. Every week we had an internal newsletter, and a lot of it was about recognition, recognizing the truck drivers, recognizing the warehouse workers, recognizing anniversaries. And I was one of the few managers who would every week send in some of these comments from the surveys. And because they didn't have that many that came in, they'd almost always publish them. So people were being recognized company-wide. 2,000 employees read what somebody had said about their performance. So it was absolutely objective. It didn't come from me. I was just a conduit. It came from the customer. And that was something that I was proud of, that I was doing that. I didn't understand why other managers didn't do it. And it really motivated my team. They all cheered each other on. Oh, now so-and-so is getting a comment. And it wasn't just the survey scores themselves. It was the comments. I needed the comments to do that.
So let's talk about the lump sum thing for a minute, okay? Before we
Okay.
move on, sorry to interrupt. I was reading something that our mutual friend Chris Furlot is writing about now, talking about it. In the past, he's been quiet, not public, but now he's speaking out a lot. And you know what it's about. It's about the lump sum. It's not working. And it's a demotivator, not a motivator. And things like that.
Yes.
Would you like to comment on that from your perspective, especially now that you're not employed in that day-to-day?
Well, I would say that whether I'm employed or not, but the lump sum problem has a great advantage that it's really easy to manage and that the costs are very clear and they tend to be limited. The great disadvantage is that there is no duty of care at all. And you're basically giving somebody money and you're telling them to figure it out. Now you can mitigate that by, for instance, having a relocation company that offers you discounted access to a moving company, to accommodation, definitely real estate referrals and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's, here's support to get you from point A to point B for work reasons, but you figure it out yourself. And if you are in a situation where you really want to impress your employees or impress new hires with the duty of care, conveying that you care about the relocation, what's happening there, a lump sum is not the right way to do it. And I
What
know that
about-
Chris thinks that too. I mean, that's a general, we all think that in a way, because lump sums also don't make a relocation company any money, really.
Yeah, okay. I'll think of another question. Ken?
No, that's a good one.
Oh, thank you. Ken, did you have anything to do with relocation management?
Just indirectly, yeah. And when I was working as a VP of Employee Planning and Development for a major medical apparel company, we had offices in other parts of the country, and we would open it up to employees if they wanted to relocate. We opened up a DC, a distribution center in Dallas, and opened it up to the California employees, any of them that wanted to go. We would support them. So we flew any of them that were interested to Dallas, had people there to meet them, show them the community, show them the school, show them the building, and just to try and remove some of the mystery of it and provide them with additional support as needed, just to facilitate the process. But again, that was more internal to the organization. Frankly, a pretty good number did move. They liked the change of environment. They liked the opportunities in a fresh, new, clean, large distribution center. And they went with their families. But again, we tried to answer every question, not that you can, but whether it's with schooling or medical care or housing, all of that, what would that be like and what would the company do to help? So just doing that internally, but we actually did not go with an outside company to help, but we had people dedicated internally to facilitate the process, which actually worked very well. And we would get testimonials from employees who had moved to the new DC about how much they enjoyed every aspect on the job and off the job by having made this change.
So the relocation at that time, this is some years ago, that when you had those people relocate, did they get the same pay as they would have if they had stayed in California?
Actually, yes, we kept that at parity and made sure that the pay levels were consistent within the distribution center as well. So the new ones wouldn't come in and making 25% more, because that's a great way to generate dissatisfaction.
Yep.
But that was part of it. You want to be as fair and equitable as you can and let the employees know that you really care about them. And believe me, if you have that kind of differential in the pay, it's going to be known very quickly, and then you're going to have issues with that. So yeah, that was exactly what we did.
Well, it's still going on because of the cost of living differential between Southern California and, say, Dallas. But the cost of living differentials today, as far as I know, is only in housing. Everything else is about the same prices that I could tell. Is that correct, Christian?
Fuel is very different.
Fuel, right. That's
There
right.
are some other things like milk. We have a friend who moved from Southern California to Dallas, and he is often saying that milk is cheaper. Now, I don't know how much milk is part of a typical person's budget, but I'm taking it as a token for something else. But fuel can definitely have an impact.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Gas prices. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably $1.50 a gallon less, maybe more.
Right. And if you think about the distances, that the commutes in say, Southern California and Northern California, or commutes in Texas, particularly if it's not as congested, I know some of Dallas is, that can add up for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Okay, this is really interesting. So as I mentioned earlier, and I need to move on in about 5 or 6 minutes. I really thank you guys for doing this. I know that Ali's neck deep in work and has a lot of concerns about what has been going on in Beirut. He expressed that to me
Yeah.
a while ago. So I wish him well. I thank you guys for doing this program. I'm going to be sending out information about the next week's New York meeting, which is 100% online. We have absolutely top shelf presentations and people participating if they all show up. We have an international cast of characters, and as you'll see if you haven't already in the link that I sent you, the topics are just first rate, and they'll trickle down to our level as well in coming weeks once the show gets produced. And I think some of you who will be on the program, that'd be great. Thank you very much for doing that. Because of the time zone differences and because of the absolute density of the topics and speaking roles, I've gone to segmenting the program, the New York program, into 3 different sections, meaning 3 different Zoom links rather than one. Not only because of the depth and dimension of the time and the megabytes and all that, but because some of the topics are so different, they are basically their own show. And so people could look at them rather than sit there and wait for the next topic to come, in which they'd have some particular keen interest. I now segment the topics into groups and cut the time. So it's kind of an innovation, and it was sort of seat of the pants. We'll see how it works. But I wanted just to tell you that, share that. Oh yeah, this program will be produced today, and you'll receive copies later today.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you all.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have a
for
great weekend. Thanks.
thank you
Cheers.
for
Take care.
doing this.
Be well, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks.